Yeah, just happy to see all of you here. Like Ægir said, I went to Japan last weekend and went to JSConf there. It's kind of the same family of events as we had here in Iceland last year. So I just wanted to go over the interesting things I saw there. Many of them are bleeding edge things that I don't say like go use in your production applications, but it's more like, okay, there might be some nice ideas there worth talking about. What I am most interested in sharing with you is the State of JS survey. So the people that run the State of JS survey every year, which is kind of seeing what frameworks are widely used and what features of the language. And we kind of get this nice summary of just the state of the JavaScript community. And the survey for 2019 is now running, and the results won't be published until after 2 weeks. But I got to see the current status, and there are a few things that I found really interesting there. And yeah, so first off, this is a picture of the slide. I talked to the guy, he was not willing to share the slides with me. And I'll explain. So here is React. So maybe going first over, this is assess, adopt, avoid, and analyze. So you can see React here leading the way in adopt. Vue is kind of trying to reach the same momentum. Preact is over here. Polymer is here in avoid. And hiding behind it is Ember. And then Angular is over here in Analyze. So it's pretty obvious that Vue and React are the top framework today. Again, you that have been in this world for a couple of years know that that might change soon. And the fire here under means that more than 50% of the non-users are interested in learning it. That means that even if it's this popular, it still has a lot of people that want to kind of become users as well. And another thing was TypeScript is now over 50% adoption rate. And what I found even more interesting there is that Elm and Reason have stopped their growth. And TypeScript has kind of taken over the growth of Reason and Elm. Even though they're still being used and they're not declining, it's still interesting that seems like people that want types in their JavaScript feel like TypeScript is the better choice. Yeah, this is what I just said. And another interesting statement that he made was that Svelte, like if you look at the history of Svelte and how people are interested in it now, how the current users are happy with it, I think it were 80-something% of Svelte's users are really happy with it, that he could kind of predict the growth curve based on other frameworks that in 2 to 3 years, it's going to be as big as React and Vue. So, I mean, that's really hard to guess, but it's interesting to look at it only from the kind of stats. So, what's Svelte anyway? Just a brief thing that it was not talked about in the conference itself, but I think it has a interesting kind of different take. Sometimes we think about JavaScript as the assembly language of the web. You know, it's the language that runs in the browser. But then now we're starting to write in other languages that either transpile over to JavaScript or even use WebAssembly. But Svelte is like you cannot just include it as a JavaScript file and use it as a JavaScript library. You have to use their CLI tool, which means that they always have this build step, transpile step, whatever you call it, so they can build language syntax into the framework, and they can build all kinds of tools to kind of just optimize your web app for you, code splitting for free or whatever you want. And it's interesting, they are the first framework that I know of to make use of JavaScript labels. So if you see the dollar over here, this is a valid JavaScript syntax. The dollar could be any name. This is just to put a label on a line. And in Svelte, that means that if any variable in this line changes, then recompute the whole statement. So for example, here we have a button. When you click on the button, the count is increased. But when it becomes 10, then this message will appear. And there's no wiring needing. It's just saying like, hey, recompute this statement when the variable changes. So I think it's interesting. It's not just following all the frameworks. It's kind of taking a different approach. There's no virtual DOM. There's really minimal runtime library. It kind of tries to do all the heavy lifting at compile time. Another talk at JSConf Japan was about Dino, which is kind of Node, but Dino reversed. And this is the same creator as the creator of Node, Ryan Dahl. And he had a talk at JSConf EU last year, I think, announcing this, where he just talked about mistakes he made when he created Node, what he wanted to do differently. So this is his second attempt at Node, learning from his experience. Yeah. So this is kind of their statement. Dino aims to be productive and secure scripting environment for the modern programmer. So they're even saying you should use this instead of shell scripts or Python scripts or whatever. And what I think is really interesting to think about is like Node was created in 2009, and a lot has changed since then. Just JavaScript as a language, the web platform, everything. So creating Node again today is just completely different, because you can leverage different things and the focus is not the same. I'm just gonna run quickly through some of the features and not dive too deep. So it supports TypeScript and WebAssembly built in, and kind of encourages the use of TypeScript. You don't use NPM, so you don't import modules based on names, but you import them based on URLs. If anyone has used Go, it kind of reminds me of that, many things in Dino. And it only supports ES modules. There's no require. I find that quite interesting how the whole ecosystem is now embracing ES modules. It does provide more standard modules. It's trying to just make JavaScript or TypeScript nicer to use out of the box. And as well, it does have some tooling built into the CLI. So Dino is just one single executable file, but it does have tools to run tests for code formatting, bundling, and linting. And kind of, if you think that if that would all just come with Node. But it's really focused on security. So you do need to give it explicit access to, when you're accessing your hard disk or files or network access or anything like that. So that's like short on Dino. Next up, I would like to tell you all about the package manager called Pika. And yeah, maybe it does not go well in Iceland, but that's the name. So that's a package manager that you can compare to NPM, but it's only for ES6 modules. And it's kind of meant to be the package manager for the web. For me, it kind of makes me think of Bower, how that tried to be the package manager for web, but I don't know, maybe this will work now with ES modules, because NPM is kind of full of everything, and then this can be more focused. So it also has a CDN, and what's nice now, so ES modules are pretty well supported in Chrome today, or in evergreen browsers. It has like 80-something% support. So soon you can just do this in the browser code. So what they were saying is like, now is the first time since jQuery times where we can write a modern web application and run it in the browser without bundling. And I mean, even though we won't do it, it's still really powerful that we can. So this would import Preact directly into the browser without any bundling. And what they also offer is a CLI tool now called Snowflake. It used to be this name. And this is to take your node modules. So you can take a whole node module and turn it into one JavaScript file that just exports an ES module. So you can basically run this on your existing modern web app, and it would create a folder called web modules and then a single JavaScript file for each dependency. And that means you can import your modules like this and then just run your web app in the browser without any bundler or dev server or anything, just static HTTP server, and it all works. And what's interesting there is now we also have HTTP2 pretty well usable, and that encourages us to not bundle everything together. But I'm not saying not bundle anything, but it's nice to bundle the libraries together, and then we can leverage normal HTTP caching for libraries. So the client will only download your dependencies when the dependencies change, instead of you make this one little change in your application code and then you try downloading whole of React again. But again, they also offer a Babel transform to do this for you, so you can leverage this without any change in your code, application code. Yeah, this is basically what I already talked about. Now you kind of don't need any build step. And what's interesting, they go even further. They also offer a web-based tool for authoring your packages within the browser. So they take Visual Studio Code and make that run in the browser. And there is a short video of it here, if I can play it. No? No, I don't know. Does anyone know how to play videos in Keynote? So anyways, this is on the website. It's just a video of this tool. So you can go in here, create a new package, and you just select if you want to use TypeScript or whatever configuration, the name, and then it is published, and there you're just inside of basically web-based VS Code, where you can write your package and you can link to it directly from their CDN. So you can be writing your application and just importing the module live. So they're kind of trying to take away all of the CLI knowledge needed to build web apps. And this tool then has built in a test runner and a way to publish your packets. And it also publishes it to NPM for you as well, if you want. And then say your package gets a pull request on GitHub, then you can have this bot just put here a edit. So you can basically just click there, and then you just have your whole environment set up. I mean, you could be on an iPad or phone, you know, making fixes, making sure all the tests work, and then just publish. So it's kind of, yeah. This is what I talked about before. You can just import it directly into your web app while you're working on it. The last thing I found interesting was about time in JavaScript. And I guess some of you have used the date object. It was designed in '97 and hasn't changed since. That's like the reason why it's as it is. You know, months start with 0. And it's interesting tweet from Brendan, creator of JavaScript. He always has the same excuse that JavaScript was written or created in 8 days, and then it just stayed the same for a long time. But it's basically a copy of Java's date. Like Java state was in '95, but Java has already fixed their days since then. It's not 0-based anymore, but JavaScript kind of is stuck with it. And they're saying like, the reason for it was, make it look like Java. So that was interesting. However, they are working on a better way of dealing with date and time in JavaScript and time zones and all the things. It's called Temporal. It's stage 2. It's under TC39 on GitHub. So I'm not gonna share anything about how you use that API, since that wasn't even in the presentation, but you can go take a look at the proposal. So my main message here is it's hopefully gonna be better soon. And there is a polyfill for this already. Stage 2. I think so. Yeah, it's currently in stage 2. Yeah, so that's just the overview of JSConf Japan. There were some other talks, but I found those the most interesting ones. So, thank you.